you, relationships are critical in Washington. But how do you A, find out who the key players are, and B, figure out how to reach out to them? Well, I want to tell you about Leadership Connect. It's been an absolute lifesaver for us as we expand our operations and outreach here at Washington Tech. Leadership Connect, it's the digital service used by top federal contractors and government affairs leaders to contact decision makers and develop those strategic relationships. Visit leadershipconnect.io and join the community. I love it, and I'm 100% sure you will too. That's leadershipconnect.io. Try it now.
I was born and raised and I went to college in Russia. In 2011, 2012, 2013, they were really cramping down on free speech online. And that was the moment I think I really realized how easy it is to take it away.
Welcome to the Washington Tech Policy Podcast.
The latest tech law and policy news and brightest tech law and policy experts wherever you are.
So you can stay informed, on the move, in less time.
From Washington, D.C., it's the Washington Tech Policy Podcast.
With Joe Miller.
Joe Miller.
Internet carriers struggle with demand amidst the Rona pandemic. Gig workers take a few steps forward with unemployment pay, but experts think it's just the tip of the iceberg. And Askhen Kazaryan is my guest. Hey everybody, with millions of Americans now either working remotely or using the internet while they're unemployed, the nation's internet service providers, or should I say their workers, are working overtime to keep the networks going and traffic flowing freely online in order to meet demand. Edge providers like Disney and Netflix have cut bandwidth in Europe after regulators there stepped in, and here in the U.S., the Federal Communications Commission has opened additional spectrum for the carriers. The FCC has also relaxed a rule that prohibited carriers from gifting services to E-rate subsidy recipients like schools and hospitals. Of specific concern, though, to policymakers are rural residents without access who are unable to take advantage of remote healthcare options via high-speed broadband. But the FCC has, up until now, lacked robust data regarding internet access in rural areas. President Trump signed the Broadband Data Act earlier this week, which will address some of the data challenges. But advocates like Matt Wood at Free Press are also pushing for better pricing regulations, an issue that affects both urban and rural areas, he told Gizmodo, as the average price of internet service in the United States surpasses that of countries like Russia, China, and Syria. Carriers' responses to the increased demand brought on by coronavirus and relative high price of broadband have varied. In New York City, for example, Chalkbeat reports that ISPs that serve the area, including Charter and Optimum, have denied access to families with delinquent accounts, even if their children need an internet connection to participate in remote instruction while their schools are closed. Verizon, on the other hand, is offering free Fios and wireless service so customers who have been ordered to shelter in place can access entertainment and educational programming. Starting April 1st, Verizon will also grant new customers access to its premium tier of movie channels like HBO and Showtime free for 30 days. Turning to the gig market, as you probably already know, the number of Americans filing new unemployment claims reached an astonishing 3.3 million last week alone, the highest weekly unemployment rate ever by a long shot. Previously, the worst weekly unemployment rate happened in 1982 when weekly jobless claims once hit 695,000, still well under a million. But gig workers are being hit particularly hard, such as Uber and Lyft drivers faced with decreased demand for car service. And gig workers overall who receive fewer employment perks and pay than full-timers working from home have been laid off. And if they're 1099 independent contractors, they're not able to claim unemployment insurance. When we look to corporate actors, there are good actors and some not so good. Google, for example, announced that it would extend the contracts of its temporary workforce by 60 days. The company is also investing $800 million in programs to help small and mid-sized businesses working to address the COVID-19 epidemic. Uber and Lyft, on the other hand, according to the New York Times, have been promoting a California ballot initiative that would undo legislation signed into law there last year, which would entitle workers whose work is controlled by their employers, like Uber and Lyft drivers, to qualify as employees, irrespective of whether they are W-2 or 1099 workers. The $2 trillion stimulus bill the president signed into law on Friday extends unemployment benefits to gig workers. However, advocates see this as only a Band-Aid. Once it falls off, then what? Lacking health insurance, one Uber driver reportedly died from COVID-19 after he was exposed to a sick passenger. Turning to the ISPs, Charter isn't giving bonus pay to workers who expose themselves to the coronavirus when they enter customers' homes. What they are giving them, though, is a $25 restaurant gift card. No soap to wash their hands before they eat, though. That's in the restaurant bathroom already. Twitter deleted a post from the Federalist, the right-wing website, for retweeting a post by a fake dermatologist who'd been advocating for mass exposure to the coronavirus. Twitter also temporarily blocked the content. Finally, the FBI warned the public about cyber criminals exploiting the coronavirus epidemic by sending fake emails that appear to be coming from the Centers for Disease Control or other healthcare organizations. So be careful to check and double check not just the from field, but also the metadata to determine exactly who the email is coming from before you open it. If you've subscribed to newsletters from healthcare organizations, for example, you can also filter them to a separate folder automatically so that anything appearing to be from them in the regular inbox looks suspicious by default when you're reviewing your messages. But I'm sure you know all of this already. You can find links to all these stories in the show notes. Stay with us.
Is global policy. This is the Washing Tech Policy Podcast, serving the world.
My guest today is Askhen Kazaryan, Director of Civil Liberties at TechFreedom. She manages and develops policy projects on free speech, artificial intelligence, surveillance, reform, and the sharing economy. Ashkhen also handles outreach and coalition building for the organization. Ash is an Internet Law and Policy Fellow and an expert at the Federalist Society's Emerging Technology Working Group, which is part of the Regulatory Transparency Project. Askhen Kazaryan. So tell us about your background and your work at TechFreedom.
Yes, I think for people to understand where I come from on a lot of policy issues and regulations issues, it's important to mention that I was born and raised and I went to college in Russia, and that really formed all of my opinions about the world and how I set my values and how I operate within the society. I was 15 when I went to college, and I was...
Wait, you were 15 when you went to college?
Yes.
Was that young for Russia, or is that the typical age?
No, it was young for Russia. It was usually 17, 18.
Wow.
My parents are both university professors, and I was the first child, so they really put all the pressure on me and no pressure on my siblings. But so being very young, I was very idealistic, and I went into law school and I was like, I'm going to be a human rights lawyer. I'm going to work on human rights on the international level. That was my goal. And more I learned about different aspects of law and different areas of law, my illusions went away. But one thing really stuck out to me, and it was as I was in college / law school, undergrad law school, I saw the Russian government really hone in on free speech online, because what they've done before was go after media, and all the media channels and radio stations magically would change ownership to pro-president owners and things like that. But the internet was kind of that last protector of free speech, and a lot of the debate happened there. And when Putin announced basically that he was coming back as president after doing a stint as the prime minister, all the protests were organized online. And that's when the government was like, aha, we should do something about the internet. And so all these laws started getting passed in 2011, 2012, 2013. They were really cramping down on free speech online. And that was the moment I think I really realized how easy it is to take it away. I've clerked for Intellectual Property Court of Russia. It was a court that would a new court that consisted of academics, and we worked on intellectual property questions and were pretty independent. However, seeing the judiciary from the inside and seeing how incompetent sometimes or corrupt the judges in lower levels were whose decisions were coming to us, that really, I think, burned some bridges for me in the sense that I realized that there is nothing I can do in Russia to change it. There was no fight. There was no even field that you can enter and raise your voice because those voices were being silenced. So that's when I made the decision to come get an education in America. And I went to law school here in States, and then I joined TechFreedom. I knew very little about the DC tech policy scene, to be honest. I was in New Haven. I didn't know anyone here. And TechFreedom really was attractive to me because they were more right of center in some of their views. But at the same time, they worked with a lot of the groups left of center on surveillance reform, on free speech issues, and that bipartisan thing was very unique. There are very few groups who kind of cross over.
So now, were you trained for dealing with coronavirus?
I don't think I was trained. No, in no way. But I think this horrible situation that we're in right now is really showing some people's true colors. It's showing some people's true intentions. So, for example, AG Barr trying to power grab even more, which we've been saying now for months and months on end, and him directly basically saying, let me put people in confinement whenever I want to, and screw due process. We're in an emergency situation.
So now, for the past few years, for many years, we had like this techno utopia where everyone was really optimistic about tech. And over the past couple of years, people have been really critical. What are your thoughts on that? Around
3 or 4 years ago, all these different things started happening at different companies. And they were all kind of piled in together as techlash. There were data privacy scandals. There were bad management scandals. On the kind of Republican side, some Republicans have been claiming that these companies have anti-conservative bias because they're staffed with a lot of liberal-minded folks in Silicon Valley and other places of the country that are more blue than they're red. So all these attacks from different fronts not only were undermining technology companies, but also turning them into the villain of the story. At the same time, all the industries that have been now seeing significant damage from these companies also have been throwing their lobbying money against it. So the hotel lobby, the taxi cab lobby, and let's be honest, media has been now facing a different reality, and their old form of business isn't viable anymore when everything is online. TV shows are online, news are online. A lot of newspapers go out of business or have to fully move online. Those things obviously make them competitors. So now we have these different industries ganging up on technology, right? And then we entered 2020 and this horrible disease that rocked all of our lives and put everyone in danger. And every day we're anxious. We think about our loved ones. We think about the economy. A lot of people are out of jobs. It's scary. But there's technology that, unlike other quarantines that we've experienced in years before, is connecting me and you. We can record this and we can see each other. It's connecting me with my family back in Moscow every day because I'm so worried and I keep yelling at my dad to stay at home. It's keeping a lot of people still in their jobs because some work can be done remotely. Most lawyers, for example, like whole industries can move to remote work. Writers, copywriters, all these things can be done remotely, and it's the technology that connects them. And it's different types of technology. It's not one company or two. And social media companies that have been getting a lot of flack for taking our interest or taking our time or being addictive. I mean, honestly, it's the only thing that keeps me from going crazy. But social media helps me keep in touch with people and see that everyone else is kind of having the same experience and we're in this together. Maybe we finally can find that middle ground because I don't believe in vilifying a whole sector. I also don't believe not holding them accountable. But when you apply something company X did to company Y, that's just bad for the economy. That's just bad for innovation. It's very draconian in a way. It's not just Facebook and Google. It's the companies who write algorithms who are right now trying to figure out the virus. Everywhere you look, technology is in our lives now, and it's both scary and honestly giving me hope.
All right, we're gonna take a quick break here, and when we come back, we'll talk more about what you're working on. Stay with us. Do you vape?
I don't vape, no. I've never smoked or vaped in my life, Dad. If you're listening, it is true.
Because you had that episode on vaping.
Oh yeah, no. So I had an episode on vaping for the Tech Policy podcast at TechFreedom, and that is actually something TechFreedom engages in, and we believe that vaping is so much safer than smoking. It is so much safer that before my grandfather passed, I convinced him to switch to vaping, and I will never forgive myself because I wasn't fast enough to ship him the vape, because my grandfather was a smoker for many, many years, and he didn't pass from anything lung related. But that's how much I believed in its safety, and I've seen a lot of research on it, and there's a really huge anti-vaping lobby. And here's where it ties into the coronavirus situation. The FDA has been talking about vaping epidemic for months on end, and have been working on banning flavors and all these things, including the times when coronavirus was a very present threat. They were spending more resources and time on that instead of, figuring out how to make testing more available and make those tests pass the FDA process. So FDA really failed the American people on many fronts. For some reason, that agency was not prepared at all.
Do you think the CDC was prepared?
I don't think CDC was prepared, but I, in my personal capacity, think that had to do more with the layoffs at the agency and understaffing.
CDA 230. Do we even care right now?
I think we do care, actually, because I know you've done episodes on this before, but as a refresher, Section 230 allows platforms to moderate content online. It makes platforms not liable for third-party content. And Section 230 allowed platforms to moderate content in this crazy time. So all that misinformation about coronavirus that's spreading around, if it wasn't for Section 230, they wouldn't be able to moderate it in the way that they do. I mean, even my family members send me with crazy articles about garlic saving people from corona and helping you have an immunity against it. All these false claims and information are spreading, and if it wasn't for these platforms, who was going to be able to control that huge amounts of information? Now, have they been perfect in the moderation? No, but that has to do with the human factor. They are using algorithms as primary moderation resource right now, and then human moderators, because they sent all of our moderators home, basically, right, in the middle of a pandemic. But you can't do that job remotely because it works with sensitive private information of its users. So they're understaffed. A lot of the big platforms are understaffed in their moderators role, but they're doing the best they can. And honestly, I can't complain. I don't think any of us should complain as of right now. I think they've been doing a pretty good job to keeping the information as real as possible in real time. Most major platforms have like a corona response page that they create with CDC guidelines and links to the government authorities. What else can we ask from them? And Section 230 is what allows them to do that. It gives them an option to not moderate or moderate as much as they want. So that's the beauty of it. There are platforms that refuse to moderate completely, and those are the platforms that usually end up hosting Nazi content. Pinterest and The Knot, for example, decided to not promote any plantation weddings. Now, if someone wants to have a plantation wedding, they can go to another platform. It's a free country. I'm sure there will be ideas and photos from plantation weddings somewhere else. Pinterest decided to stop, and so did many other major platforms, promoting anti-vax content, which I'm sure a lot of us are very grateful for right now.
What is the Earn It Act?
And so the Earn It Act is a law that was introduced by Senator Lindsey Graham and Senator Richard Blumenthal, so a Republican and a Democrat. And I will say, first of all, there were some shady things they've done where they announced the hearing on the bill, but the text of the bill wasn't available for a very long time after they announced it, which is not in accordance with congressional procedures, but who looks at them right now, right? Earn It Act, in different modifications, the latest one, in the beginning, they were just going to give a blanket permission to the AG bar to basically create regulation of technology. In the current version, they put what they call a congressional check on it, where they basically create this commission that consists of law enforcement, agency representatives, and experts, and they claim there's going to be some technology experts. And then it is chaired by the Attorney General, who is right now Attorney General Barr, and it's supposed to work on best practices for companies to fight child exploitation materials. Who would say no to that, right? Everyone would support helping law enforcement fight those things. However, this bill is going to actually go into this very weird gray area where the way they vaguely designed the limits on what this commission can do. They can regulate encryption. Basically anything under the sun can be connected to the way law enforcement investigate child exploitation. And so that creates this backdoor and allows for law enforcement to break into the phones that they've been trying to do and they have failed to do so far. This actually ties into what I said in the beginning about AG Barr wanting more authority and power, basically, and asking for unprecedented, unchecked powers just a few days ago in context of coronavirus. So the Earn It Act is very misguided. It has so many implications. It has Fourth Amendment problems that no one would address and dismissed in a very I don't want to get legal and wonky, but that's the definition of bad law. There are ways to address these horrific crimes that don't actually even touch Section 230. So with SESTA and FOSTA, the laws that were fighting sex trafficking that were passed and we opposed, the FOSTA 2.0, the one that came out of the House Judiciary Committee, the FOSTA 2.0, actually created a new federal crime that prosecutors can use and go after perpetrators and those who help them. But then obviously, there's a lot that happened and two laws were smushed into one and passed. And guess what? To this day, on my best knowledge, not one time has a prosecutor invoked and used SESTA and FOSTA in prosecuting these crimes. Not once has a prosecutor used those. And somehow we're meant to believe that now they're using children as their new smokescreen. It is honestly disgusting to me. When I came to DC, I knew that politics were dirty, but this is not the level I was prepared for.
Yeah, very strange leadership we have now. Final ideas before we close.
Please go to techfreedom.org where all of our work is. You can find me on Twitter at ASHKHEN, Ashkhen. And yeah, follow my work there. Askhen
Kazaryan, Director of Civil Liberties at TechFreedom. Ash, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
That concludes episode 224 of the podcast. Hanging in there. I hope you're taking care of yourselves. It's tough to get off the couch, isn't it? I've been struggling with that myself. Okay, I'm going to commit to you that tomorrow, which is Friday as I'm recording this, so tomorrow, Saturday, I'm going to get out there and do at least, okay, I'll do 3,000 steps. That's pretty bad, right? That I have to struggle to get to 3,000. But I'll get it. I want to do 10,000, so I'll get that number up for you. All right? Let me know how you're doing. Give me a call, 703-259-8447. Leave me a message. Tell me how you are handling the coronavirus shit show. Now I have to mark this as mature in Apple Podcasts. Anyway, I've been a little erratic with how I'm releasing the episodes, and I'll tell you why. Nobody's driving. I don't know. I really don't know when to release the show. Before, if I released it on Tuesday morning, like I used to do, and which I will probably go back to doing at some point. But now I'm so busy eating waffles and sitting around. It's just hard to predict when folks are going to be listening because it's a mobile activity. Anyway, happy birthday to my friend and colleague, Daiquiri Ryan. She celebrated a birthday yesterday, 26. I missed the party, the online party. She did an online party. Missed it. My music ran out. Okay, bye.
Washing Tech